Hi readers, welcome back to my channel, Lila Wanders and Reads, and welcome to my weekend books. Lee here, and this is the day that I talk about what I've read the previous week and what my plans are for the upcoming week. Believe it or not, I only finished 3 books. I only read from start to finish 3 books last week. I did finish up 2 that I've been working on, so I'll talk about those as well. But it was a really light reading week for me. And I'll also talk about why it was only 3 books when it should have been at least 4. I started out the week trying to lift myself off of a bad reading week. This was not a bad reading week. This was a good one. But I needed something light. So I went with In a Holidaze by Christina Lauren. And this lifted my spirits a lot. So I've lost my glasses. It's the most wonderful time of the year, but not for Maylin Jones. She's living with her parents, hates her going nowhere job, and has just made a romantic error of epic proportions. But perhaps worst of all, this is the last Christmas May will be at her favorite place in the world, the snowy Utah cabin where she and her family have spent the holidays every year since she was born, along with 2 other beloved families. Mentally melting down as she drives away from the cabin for the final time. Spoiler alert, she's riding, not driving. That part of the blurb bothered me. May throws out what she thinks is a simple plea to the universe. Please, show me what will make me happy. The next thing she knows, tires screech and metal collides, everything goes black. But when May gasps awake, she's on an airplane bound for Utah, where she begins the same holiday all over again. With one hilarious disaster after another sending her back to the plane, May must figure out how to break free of the strange time loop and finally get her true love under the mistletoe. So this was really a cute book. I enjoyed it, and it lifted my spirits, which is exactly what I needed. Next, I finished my audiobook for September. That audiobook was The History of Sound Stories by Ben Shattuck, and I am going to try to read more short story collections on audiobook because I found this just such a pleasure to listen to. The narration was great. It had different narrators for each short story, and I highly recommend this. This is a book I would reread in physical copy. In 12 luminous stories set across 3 centuries, the history of sound examines the unexpected ways the past returns to us and how love and loss are entwined and transformed over generations. Yada, 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 yada. The haunting title story recalls the journey of 2 men who meet around a piano in a smoky, dim bar, only to spend a summer walking in the Maine woods collecting folk songs in the shadow of the First World War, forever marked by the Odyssey. Decades later, in another story, a woman discovers the wax cylinders recorded that fateful summer while cleaning her new house in Maine. Shattuck's inventive, exquisite stories transport readers from 1700s Nantucket to the contemporary woods of New Hampshire and beyond, into landscapes both enduring and unmistakably modern. Memories, artifacts, paintings, and journals resurface in surprising and poignant ways among evocative beaches, forests, and orchards, revealing the secrets, misunderstandings, and love that linger across centuries. This was, again, I really enjoyed this. This was beautiful. The end, the final story, is the second one it describes here. It starts with the men collecting folk songs and ends with the book ends with the woman finding the cylinders. And it just, throughout each story, there is a connection to another story or stories in this book. Highly recommend The History of Sound. In nonfiction, I also finished Home Before Morning, the story of an army nurse in Vietnam by Lynda VanDevanter. There is no blurb on this. It's just what people have said about it on the back. But this describes Lynda's time in Vietnam as an Army nurse, and more importantly, her time after she returns home from Vietnam. I intend to do a standalone video on this book to either post Tuesday or Wednesday. I have not decided yet. I do want to talk about women in war and some of the things in here that I could relate to, some of the things that just were really moving, and then talk a little bit about the author's life. Okay, next up, I found a new favorite author. It has been a long time since I've read a crime or detective series, and I didn't intend to start one, but I ended up buying the most recent 2 books in the series, so I couldn't read them. I had to start from the beginning, and there's like 15. So I'm going to try to maybe read one a week. But that detective is Corker O'Connor from William Kent Krueger's Iron Lake. This is the Corker O'Connor series. I read book 1 this week, and I really enjoyed it. I think that it will get better as it goes on. One of the things that I loved about this is that it had a character who initially I did not like. I didn't like her through most of the book, and then I liked her. She turned herself around for me. This doesn't have a blurb either. I guess because this is a 20th anniversary edition, maybe they think they don't need it on this. Part Irish, part Anishinaabe Indian. Apologies, my pronunciation is horrible. Cork O'Connor is the former sheriff of Aurora, Minnesota. Population 3,752. Once a cop on Chicago's South Side, there's not much that can shock him. You don't hear much about the Chicago stuff in this book so far in the series. But when the town's judge is brutally murdered and a young Eagle Scout is reported missing, Cork takes on this complicated and perplexing case of conspiracy, corruption, and a small town secret that hits painfully close to home. So, again, really enjoyed this. I enjoyed it so much. I already have book 2 of the series, but I went out and picked out book 3 and book 4 so I can read once a week. But this was a slow burn. If it had been... His writing style is beautiful. I really connect with it. Had his writing style not been so good and so good for me as a reader, I probably wouldn't have this... It reads slow, so I probably would not have kept on with it, but he just makes up for it with his writing style. I want to read you just a little part of this, and this is talking about with his kind of a mentor, Sam Wintermoon, about the Wendigo. But you got to be careful, because even if you kill the Wendigo, you're still in danger. What danger? Of staying a Wendigo forever, of being the ogre you killed. So you got to be prepared. You got to have help for what follows the killing of a Wendigo. Somebody's got to be there with hot tallow ready for you to drink, to melt the ice inside you, to melt you back down to the size of other men. So just beautiful writing. It's set in Minnesota in the winter, and I felt that. Actually, was a perfect book to read when it's still kind of summer, because I felt cold reading it. And then I ended the week with another series that I ended up buying all of the series when I went on a book haul last week. And that was with the Bromance Book Club by Lyssa K. Adams. This was such a fun read. Just really, really enjoyed it. The first rule of book club, you don't talk about book club. Nashville Legends second baseman Gavin Scott's marriage is in major league trouble. He's recently discovered a humiliating secret. His wife, Thea, has always faked the big O. When he loses his cool at the revelation, it's the final straw on their already strained relationship. Thea asks for a divorce, and Gavin realizes he's let his pride and fear get the better of him. Distraught and desperate, Gavin finds help from an unlikely source, a secret romance book club made up of Nashville's top alpha men. With the help of their current read, a steamy Regency novel titled Courting the Countess, the guys coach Gavin on saving his marriage. But it'll take a lot more than flowery words and grand gestures for this hapless Romeo to find his inner hero and win back the trust of his wife. So, throughout this book, there are chapters that are peppered in from Courting the Countess, and it's really, really just a cute, light read. If you ever need to cleanse your palate after reading something kind of heavy, I recommend the Bromance Book Club. I've got the rest of the series. We'll see how the rest of it goes. Not in any hurry to get to them, but I will get to them at some point. Finally, I'm recording this on a Saturday. I had Thursday and Friday off, and I did not read a single... That's not true. I read some pages. I read just about to the 53-page mark of Nelson DeMille's Word of Honor. Nelson DeMille died last week, and I picked this up on Wednesday evening to read in tribute. But today I decided to DNF it. You know how there's a lot lately of nostalgia about the 80s? All the fun stuff from the 80s. This book, which I have read before, made me feel like I was back in the mid-80s, but not in a good way. I did not like Ben Tyson, the main character, and I just got this heavy, sad feeling, and I realized I did not want to spend 738 pages, or however many pages it is, feeling that way. And, I had a dentist appointment on Thursday, I read a little bit at the dentist office, and then I put this book down, and picked it up maybe once or twice more, but did not read it all Thursday night, did not read it all Friday night, and if I can do that, it means it's time to move on to something else. So I did DNF this. I am still considering doing a tribute video to Nelson DeMille. I have several of his books. I do like his writing. This just hits different now than it did when I read it back in the mid-80s, late 80s, or early 90s. In Word of Honor, he is a good man, a brilliant corporate executive, an honest, handsome family man, admired by men and desired by women. This is very, male. But 16 years ago, Ben Tyson was a lieutenant in Vietnam. There, in 1968, the men under his command committed a murderous atrocity, and they together swore never to tell the world what they had done. Now the press, army justice, and the events he tried to forget have caught up with Ben Tyson. His family, his career, and his personal sense of honor hang in the balance, and only one woman can reveal the truth of his past and set him free. Again, I am sorry for Mr. DeMille's passing and for his family. I do still love his books. This just was hit at the wrong time for me, and I couldn't read on feeling that way. Moving on. I'm not going to put that in my red pile. So, what is up? Okay, let me just add one more thing. In my and Mr. DeMille's defense, Thursday and Friday, and all of last week really, were kind of a lot. We had Diddy getting arrested, exploding pagers in Lebanon, Mark Robinson on a porn site, and RFK Jr. having a relationship with a reporter. So it was just a lot. So that was part of Thursday and Friday, and I was like, what the hell is going on? So that did affect my wanting to read because I felt like I needed to stay up with what was going on. Anywho, next up for me, I'm going to resume short stories on audio. I'm going to finish Stephen King's You Like It Darker. Dust cover is dusty. I am about halfway through with this. I think I counted 7 stories left. I'm not sure how long that will take to listen to. But I know from the history of sound that this has got a great narrator, and I am going to see how this works for me. So about this, You Like It Darker. Two Talented Bastards, which I've read, explores the long-hidden secret of how the eponymous gentlemen got their skills. In Danny Coughlin's Bad Dream, a brief and unprecedented psychic flash upends dozens of lives. Danny's most catastrophically, I've read that one too. Rattlesnakes, which is further in the book, I've read as well. That was a sequel to Cujo. And in that, a grieving widower travels to Florida for respite and instead receives an unexpected inheritance with major strings attached. The Dreamers, which I've not read, a taciturn Vietnam vet answers a job ad and learns that there are some corners of the universe best left unexplored. Have I read that one? I've not read that. The Answer Man asks if prescience is good luck or bad, and reminds us that a life marked by unbearable tragedy can still be meaningful. So I've got like 7 stories left to read. I'll skip over Rattlesnakes, but I do look forward to hopefully finishing this up within the next 2 weeks. On the nonfiction side, so not this past week, but the Friday before, I went to book club. And I think I might have mentioned this in another haul, but we talked about the book and then conversations were going all around, and I overheard someone say that they had been watching Army Wives on Hulu. So I went home that night and watched an episode and have been binging it ever since. And I don't watch TV that much, but I'm going through this series. It is, if the cast were not so great, it'd be terrible, but there's a great cast. I love the actors, and it is like a nighttime soap opera. I love it. It's ridiculous. But I saw that it was based on a book by Tanya Biank. I saw a review about this by allegedly one of the wives in here. It was not a good review, but whatever. So Army Wives, the unwritten code of military marriage. Biank tells the story of 4 typical Army wives who, in a flash, find themselves in extraordinary circumstances that ultimately force them to redefine who they are as women and wives. This is the true story about what happens when real life collides with Army convention. So the reason that I bought this to read is because let me get to, God, the print is really small on here. Prologue. So there's a North Carolina connection here. In the summer of 2002, I was a military reporter for the Fayetteville Observer in Fayetteville, North Carolina, the town outside what was then Fort Bragg. Yada, yada, yada. Yet that summer, in the span of just 6 weeks, 4 Fort Bragg soldiers killed their wives. Then 2 of the men committed suicide, and a third would hang himself in jail 8 months later. In a 5th case, an officer's wife was charged with killing her husband. So I guess this led her to do a story about army wives. Just, sorry, for the record, if you If you Google Fort Bragg murders, this case will come up, but this is not the only case that will come up. So that's going to be my nonfiction-ish book, and I will let you know what I think about it. On the fiction side, because I just decided to DNF Word of Honor, I'm not sure what I'm going to read next. I've got a lot of chores that I must do today, and I will decide as I'm going around. Picking up books will be one of those chores, and I will decide what to read next, and I'll let you know what it is. That's it for me. As always, I will have links to each of these books at bookshop.org down in the description box. I have 2 more videos coming this week. One is going to be about Home Before Morning, and the other maybe Nelson DeMille, may not be. I'll let you know. Anywho, that is it for me. Happy reading!